Igcse IB and CAIE Online Academy. This is an online academy. We offer programs for the IB and CAIE programs. Now, in today's live session, my name is Frederick. I'm going to take you through sexual reproduction in humans. This is topic number 16.4 from our Igcse Cambridge Biology syllabus. So those who are preparing for the October-November exams, please take this session seriously, because I'm going to take you step by step to look at sexual reproduction in humans. Now, the first thing that I want us to look at are the objectives of the lesson. What objectives are we looking at today? So the first objective of the lesson, you should be able to identify and label. So in our exams, we will give you the diagram of the reproductive organ systems of either the male or the female. So you must be in a position to identify and label on that diagram. If it is a male one, if it is a male reproductive organ system, you need to be in a position to identify the testes. We have the scrotum, we have the sperm ducts, we also have the prostate glands, urethra, and the penis. So you should be in a position to identify them on the diagram and also state their functions. So we'll ask you for their identity and also the functions, or we will give you their names, then we ask to describe their functions. So in this live session, we are going to look at those areas altogether. Then when you come to the female one, the female reproductive organ system, we have the ovaries, we have the oviducts, we have the uterus, we have the uterus, cervix, the vagina, which is also called the birth canal. So those parts must be able to identify them on a diagram. Then also you should be in a position to describe their functions. Now, apart from those diagrams, another thing that we'll be looking at fertilization. We'll be looking at fertilization. So you must be in a position to define the term fertilization. You should be in a position to define the term fertilization. And also, apart from defining, we have that part, describe. You should also be in a position to describe the process of fertilization. So we have the definition of fertilization, and again we'll be looking at what does it involve when we talk about fertilization in humans. Then we'll also look at the differences between the female and the male gametes, because we can ask you in our exams to give us the difference between the male and the female gametes in terms of size, structure, motility or movement, numbers. So we'll be asking you those parts. Then also finally, what we'll be looking at by the end of the lesson, you should be in a position to describe the adaptive features of these gametes. You should be in a position to describe the adaptive features of the male gamete and also the adaptive features of the female gametes. Now on our table we have a lot of things. Those are quite a number of lesson objectives that we must be able to be talking about by the end of this live session. So let's go. So this is the diagram that we are likely to bring if I wanted to ask you a question from the male reproductive organ system. This is the diagram that I'm likely to bring. Then I ask you a number of questions from it. Now we are going to start by looking at the parts that you are supposed to be in a position to label. The first part that we'll be looking at, I will start with the testes. The testes, they are also called testicles. The testes, they are also called testicles. Now, I want you to remember when you are preparing for your exams, the testes or the testicles, they have two functions. They have how many functions? Two functions. The first function, they are the ones that are involved in the production. They produce the sperm cells. They're the ones responsible for the production of the sperm cells. Now, apart from producing the sperm cells, they also produce the male sex hormones. So two functions. Production of male sex hormones. These male sex hormones, we call them testosterone. Testosterone. So we have them there. That's the spelling. Please mark the spelling because sometimes we take these spellings seriously when it comes to exams. So the testicles, two functions. One, production of the male gametes that we are calling the sperm cells, and the second one, the production or the secretion of the male sex hormones. Then the next thing that I want us to look at will be the scrotum. The scrotum, that's the label of the scrotum. So the scrotum, it is also called the scrotal sac. So you can call it a scrotum. At the same time, you can even call it a scrotal sac. Its job is to hold or contain the testes. It holds or contains the testes. Because we believe that the temperature in the body is a little bit high. It is not suitable for the synthesis or for the production of the sperm cell. But the temperature outside the body is cool enough for the production of healthy sperm cells. So the scrotal sac, its job is to contain or to hold the testes outside the body. Then another organ is this tube that leads from the testes. We have the tube that leads from the testes. We call it the sperm duct. You can call it the sperm duct. So the sperm duct is a tube. That tube, it transports the sperm from the testes to the urethra. The tube that transports the sperm cells from the testes to the urethra, we call it the sperm duct. So look at our diagram. That tube directly coming from the testes. It's directly coming from the testes. That's what we call the sperm duct. Then we have the urethra. If you want to know where the urethra is, then look at the bladder. This is the bladder. So that tube leading from the bladder is what we call the urethra. That tube leading from the bladder is what we call the urethra. Now, the urethra has got two functions. Okay? Urethra has got two functions. The first function of the urethra is in excretion, which is it allows for the passage of urine. Urethra. And please mark the spelling, very important. Spelling of urethra. It allows for the passage of urine from the bladder towards outside of the body. Then apart from that, now in reproduction, it allows for the passage of the seminal fluid, or what we call the semen. So if I ask you in an exam to state the function of urethra, just tell me that urethra is the tube which allows for the passage of urine and seminal fluid through the penis. Two functions: allows for the passage of urine and seminal fluid through the penis. Then we have what we call the prostate gland. Prostate gland, there it is on that diagram. Prostate gland. Now this gland, it's the one that secretes the fluid this fluid which is rich in nutrients, that fluid we call it the semen. You can call it semen, or you can call it seminal fluid if you may. You can call it seminal fluid. Okay. Seminal fluid. So this fluid here is secreted by the prostate gland. It contains a lot of nutrients such as oxygen that is required, such as glucose that is required by the sperm cells. Prostate gland, its function, produces a fluid rich in nutrients called semen, or you can call it, it produces seminal fluid, and that one is its location. Then finally we have what we call the penis, and that's the labeling. Now the penis, it is the one used for the transfer of semen containing the sperm into the female reproductive organ during sexual intercourse. So it is used during sexual intercourse to transfer the semen containing the sperm cells into the female reproductive organ. So if you look at the male reproductive organ, I want you to look at these 6 parts: the testis and its function, 2 functions, production of the sperm cells and also the production of the male sex hormones. Then we have the scrotum or the scrotal sac. It holds the testes, or it contains the testes. Then we have the sperm duct. It's just a tube that transports the sperm from the testes to the urethra. Now on my diagram I have called it the vas deferens, the vas deferens. So other scientists or other books, we call it the vas deferens. If you see the vas deferens, just remember that's the sperm duct. Then we have the urethra, and I said you must know the spelling of the urethra. It's a tube that allows for the passage of urine and the seminal fluid through the penis. Then we have another one, the prostate gland, the gland that produces the semen, the fluid that is rich in nutrients such as glucose. Then we have the penis, which is used for during sexual intercourse to transfer the semen containing the sperm cells into the female reproductive organ. So those parts, very important. Now, when we come to the female reproductive organ system, that's the female reproductive organ system. Now, when we come to the female one, again we have 5 organs that you need to look at. We have 5 organs that we need to look at. The first organ that you're going to look at, we have the ovary. The ovary, that's where it is, the ovary. So please, there are always 2 ovaries. Okay? There are always 2 ovaries. Now, ovaries also, they have 2 functions. I've written only one here, but there are 2 functions. That's where the eggs or the ovum, they are made there. The eggs or the ovum are made there. So we say that ovaries, they contain the follicles. So inside the follicles we have the ova. If there are many, you say ova. If it is one, you say ovum. So they are produced in the ovaries. Then the second function of the ovaries is the secretion of the female sex hormones. So they are also responsible for the secretion of female sex hormones called estrogen. There's also another hormone produced there. We'll be looking at it later on in our coming video. So we have estrogen. we have estrogen. So estrogen also is secreted from the ovary. So guys, ovaries, two functions. Okay, the first function, production of the eggs, the female sex gametes. Eggs are produced in the ovaries. The second function, that's where estrogen is produced, the female hormone, estrogen produced in the ovaries. Then we have what we call the fallopian tubes. We also have two fallopian tubes. So the fallopian tubes are also called the oviducts. We have two fallopian tubes, one leading from the left one and one leading from the left ovary and one leading from the right ovary. Fallopian tubes, they are also called oviducts. So the fallopian tubes, they have two functions. One, that is where fertilization takes place. So if you are asked for the function of the fallopian tube or the oviduct, it is the one responsible for fertilization. We are going to see what it is. Fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube or the oviducts. Then apart from that, fallopian tube also allows the ovum or the zygote to move down the uterus. So we say it also carries an ovum into the uterus. So when fertilization takes place, we say it carries the zygote down into the uterus. But if fertilization fails, we say it carries an ovum into the uterus. But the main function, site of fertilization. Then we have what we call the uterus, which is commonly called the womb. Those who are walking on the street will call it the womb. But we scientists, we biologists, we are not going to call it the womb, but we call it the uterus. Look at it, the blue part. That's the uterus. Now, it is inside the uterus, it is just a pouch or a bag where the fetus develops. Okay? So once implantation takes place, the embryo will develop into the fetus, and the fetus develops into a baby inside the womb. So please look at the location of the womb and its job, its function. That's where fetus develops. That's where the fetus develops into a baby. Then we have another important part, what we are calling the uterus lining. Look at the labeling of the uterus lining there. That's why you have the uterus lining. Sometimes we call it the endometrium. Endometrium. So endometrium or the uterus lining, that's now where implantation takes place. So in the upcoming videos, we'll see what happens after fertilization or what happens during implantation. Implantation takes place in the uterus lining or the endometrium. Okay, mark that. Then we have the cervix. That's where the cervix is. That's where the cervix is. That's the cervix. The cervix. So the cervix is just a ring of muscles. It separates the vagina from the uterus. It separates the vagina from the uterus. And then, apart from that, during child delivery, during the process of child delivery, it dilates, it increases in size. So it dilates or increases in size during child delivery so that the child can pass through easily. So if I ask you the function of the cervix, just tell me that the cervix dilates during child delivery because it has got a ring of muscles, and then it separates the vagina from the uterus. Then we have the vagina, which is also called the birth canal. The vagina or the birth canal. So here is where the sperm are deposited. The sperm are deposited here during sexual intercourse. The sperm are deposited into the vagina during sexual intercourse. Apart from that, it's also very important during child delivery, it also dilates. It expands to allow the baby to pass out easily. So those 5 parts, guys, as you revise for your October-November exams, look at these areas. There are the 5 parts from the female reproductive organ system. You should be in a position to label them. The ovaries, okay? The ovaries and the function, 2 functions. That's where the egg are made there, or the ovum, they are made there. The ova are made there. Then also it's the one responsible for the secretion of estrogen. Then we have the fallopian tube, or the oviduct, site of fertilization. Then you have the uterus, or the womb. That's where the fetus develops into a baby. Then you have the uterus lining, or the endometrium. That's where implantation takes place. Then we have the cervix that separates the vagina from the uterus, and also it dilates during child delivery. Then we have the vagina, or the birth canal. We are saying that it is responsible during the delivery of the child. It dilates, okay? It increases in size, and also that's where the sperm is deposited. Take those parts seriously. Now, after looking at the parts of the male reproductive organ systems and the female reproductive organ system, I want us now to come to the process of fertilization. First, we look at the definition of fertilization. Then we will look at what does it entail, what is the process. So first of all, I want you to remember that if we have the egg and you have there a sperm cell, now the egg and the sperm cell, we say that they are haploid. Haploid means that they contain one set of chromosomes. In layman's language, you can say that they contain half the total number of chromosomes. But in biological terms, you say haploid means one set of chromosomes. Now, if you look at the human body, because we're talking about human here, the human body contains a total of 46 chromosomes. Okay? Human body, 46 chromosomes. So if you're talking about haploid, which is one set, which means that they contain 23. So let's say that's the egg. It contains 23 chromosomes. The sperm cell also 23 chromosomes. So at fertilization, the nucleus, the haploid nucleus from the egg fuses with the haploid nucleus from the sperm, and we are going to get a new cell. Okay? We will get a new cell that we are calling a zygote. Okay? We are going to get a new cell that we are calling a zygote. We have a new cell there. We are calling it a zygote. So what I want you to remember, and many students, they make this mistake. When you are asked to name the cell that is formed after fertilization, the cell formed after fertilization is the zygote. Now, what is fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion. That's the what you'll be looking at. The fusion of the haploid nuclei from the male gamete and the haploid nucleus from the female gamete to form a diploid zygote. Okay? I repeat, fertilization is the fusion of the haploid nucleus from the male gamete and a haploid nucleus from a female gamete to form a diploid zygote. So we have a diploid zygote there. So those are the key areas that we'll be looking at when I'm marking that question. Okay, so the egg brings 23 chromosomes. A sperm cell also will bring 23 chromosomes. Then we get a zygote which is diploid. And how many chromosomes does it have? It will have a total of 46. Okay, so a human zygote, 46 chromosomes. So that is the meaning of fertilization. Fusion of the haploid nucleus from the male gamete and a haploid nucleus from a female gamete to form a diploid zygote. The process takes place, we have seen that, the process of fertilization, we have seen it takes place in the oviduct or in the fallopian tube. I hope that is clear with you. Now, remember I said we need to know the definition of fertilization. Now we are going to look at the process. What is the process of fertilization? You will also be asked this one. Describe the process of fertilization. These are two different things. Describe the process of fertilization. From the previous slide, we only saw the definition. So describe the process of fertilization. Now, when you come to the process of fertilization, we are going to consider this sperm cell here. And this will be our egg. The egg normally is surrounded by several follicle cells surrounding the egg or the ovum. So what happens during the process of fertilization? What happens at the tip? If you look at the tip of the head of a sperm, there is what we call acrosome. So the first thing that you'll be talking about, acrosome. So the acrosome is just a packet of enzymes. It is found at the tip of the head of a sperm. This acrosome, it contains digestive enzymes. Okay? It contains digestive enzymes. So the next bit is the acrosome secretes digestive enzymes. Now, these digestive enzymes, what do? The digestive enzyme, they digest. Okay? The digestive enzymes from the acrosome digest part of the membrane. Okay? So they digest part of the membrane of the egg. Okay? They digest part of the membrane of the egg to allow the head of the sperm cell to penetrate into the cytoplasm. So the first thing that you're going to look at, acrosome secretes digestive enzymes, and those digestive enzymes, what do? Number 3, okay, the digestive enzymes digest part of the egg membrane so that the head of the sperm cell can enter into the cytoplasm. So I want you to remember that it is only the head. You can look, if you look at this diagram of ours, it is only the head of the sperm cell entering the cytoplasm. Okay, then the tail of course remains behind. So the head of the sperm cell enter into the cytoplasm. Now guys, I want you to remember, once the head of the first sperm cell enters into the cytoplasm, of the ovum, there are certain reactions that take place, okay? There are certain reactions that take place that lead to the formation of a barrier membrane. So point number 4, after the digestion of the membrane and the head of the sperm cell has penetrated into the cytoplasm of the ovum, the next that you need to talk about, point number 4, are the changes that take place that lead to the formation of a barrier membrane. Now this barrier membrane, it prevents the entry of any other sperm cell, okay? It prevents the entry of any other sperm. Then after that, now you have the process of fertilization. So we have the fusion. The nucleus of this sperm cell will fuse with the nucleus of the egg at fertilization to give you a zygote. So point number 5, that will give us point number 5. The fusion of haplonucleus from the sperm cell and haplonucleus of the egg to give us diploid zygote. Now guys, this one, normally if I want to ask you this one in an exam, we normally ask it for a maximum of 5 marks. The process of fertilization. Start by talking about the acrosome. What does it do? Acrosome secretes digestive enzymes. These digestive enzymes, they digest part of the membrane of the egg to allow the head of the sperm to enter into the cytoplasm of the egg. Then after that, we have changes, reactions that take place that lead to the formation of a barrier membrane. Now this barrier membrane does not allow any other sperm to enter into the cytoplasm. Then finally you finish by telling us the process of fertilization. The haplonucleus from the sperm fuses with the haplonucleus from the egg to give us a diploid zygote. If we explain that one correctly the way I've said, you are sure of getting 5 marks. Now, I have a question here with me that was taken from an Igcse exam. Figure 4.1 is a diagram of sorry, we are going ahead. So, sorry. So, the diagram of the human female reproductive system. I'm trying to look for my pen here. Yes, there we go. There we go. Good. So, complete the table 4.1 to show the letter and the name of each of the structures that perform these functions. The first question, releases estrogen. Releases estrogen. Remember, we have just agreed that the part responsible for the releasing of estrogen is the ovary. That is F, the ovary. So you just come to the table and put F there. Okay, then you give the name, it is the ovary. That's the ovary. Good. Then site of fertilization. Site of fertilization. Remember, we just said that fertilization takes place where? In the oviduct. So we have, that's the oviduct. So site of fertilization, we are going to give it A. And then you write there, oviduct. If you like, you can also call it the fallopian tube. oviduct there. Then we have site of implantation. Site of implantation. Site of implantation, we said, is uterus lining. Now here, guys, you must be very careful. Don't go for B. Implantation does take place in the uterus. B is the uterus. We said it takes place on the uterus lining, and that one will be E. So site of implantation, we are going to give it E, and that is a uterus. You call it uterus lining. Some of us, don't have nice handwriting, but don't worry. We have taken advantage of computer. So the uterus lining takes place, that's where implantation takes place. You might want to call it endometrium. Endometrium. Then dilates during process of birth. Here you can give either C or D. Either of them will be cool with that. So you can say C or D there. So if you go for C, we are going to call it vagina. Okay. Vagina, if you go for C. Okay, and if you go for D, we are going to call it the cervix. The cervix. We have, X there. So you can see, just doing that, knowing the parts and their functions, we are going to give you 4 marks. Okay, so this is how we can ask it in a table form. Then we ask you to label them and also to give their functions. We'll be good to go with 4 marks. Now the second part, fertilization is the fusion of the nuclei of a male gamete and the female gamete, resulting in a zygote. State the number of chromosomes present in a human female gamete. Remember, we said the female gamete is haploid. Okay, so here we are going to put how many? 23. Then state the number of chromosomes present in the human zygote. Remember, we said that the zygote now is diploid, so we are going to give it a total number of 46. So by only doing that, you are getting 2 marks, so a total of 6. So it is something which is very easy. Just have to revise it continuously, then you master what's going on there. Now we also have one from the female, from the male. Now look at that diagram. Also, we can be asked from what we have just discussed. The first question, name of structure, the testis. So remember the testis, we said that the testis will be C. According to this diagram, the testis will be C. So you come there, the letter, you give it that. Then the function, you can give it one function whereby we said it's the one responsible for the production of sperm. Produces sperm. Produces the sperm. So you can talk about this one, or you can say that is the one that is responsible for the releasing of the male sex hormone. Then transports sperm but not urine. Key point there. So you must read your questions carefully. But not urine. Transports sperm but not urine. So that one will knock out the urethra, but we will go for the sperm duct. So if you look at the sperm duct, remember I said it is the tube that comes from the testis, and it is this one, that's the sperm duct. So let's give it D. Okay, then we are going to call it the sperm duct. Okay, let's call it the sperm duct. Okay, then tube for urine and seminal fluid through the penis. Good. Tube for urine and seminal fluid through the penis. So that one now will give us the urethra, which we are going to call it A. So we have A there, then we call it urethra. Okay, we call it, urethra there. That's the urethra. Then prostate gland. So prostate gland, we are going to give it this one. That will be E. Prostate gland, we are going to give it E. And remember we said that prostate gland is the one responsible for the secretion of Okay, it's the one that produces the seminal fluid. You can call it secretion of the semen. Okay, the secretion of the seminal fluid that contains a lot of nutrients. Prostate gland there. Then the one that contains the testes, remember we said the ones that contains the testes now will go for B. So that's B. And that is, you can call it the scrotum, or you can call it the scrotal sac. So I want to call it scrotum. I want to call it the scrotum. So guys, you can see from this part, we are able to get 5 marks. Okay? We are able to get the 5 marks. If you identify the parts of the male reproductive organ system, then you describe correctly their functions, you go with 5 marks. So as easy as that. Now, the next objective was we need to look at the differences between the egg cell and the sperm. So if you look at our diagram there, we have the egg there and you have the sperm cell there. So if you want to give the differences, we have features when we are comparing. This is very important also. When you're told to compare, there are certain features that you need to look at. Okay? So the features that we are going to look at, the first one is the size. If you look at the diagram here, we are correct to say that a sperm cell is smaller. Okay? You must use the comparative adjective there. Smaller, whereas the egg cell is larger in size. You can see the egg cell is larger, whereas the sperm cell is smaller. Now, when we come to the movement, movement, I want us to agree that the sperm moves on its own with the help of the flagellum. You can call it the tail. Okay? So this tail is the one that helps to propel the sperm as it moves from the vagina through the cervix towards the oviduct, where fertilization will take place. So if you're asked movement, for the movement, you say a sperm cell move. It moves with the help of the tail or the flagellum that lashes or propels it as it moves towards the oviduct. But when we come to the egg, and please get this carefully, please get it correctly, the egg does not move on its own. Okay? The egg does not move on its own, but it moves with the help of cilia, the hair-like structures that line the fallopian tube. Okay? So those cilia, as they waft, they're always moving in a coordinated manner. So as they move, they're able to sweep the egg down the oviduct. Now, apart from that, we have the peristalsis. The peristalsis of the oviduct also help in moving the egg down the uterus. Now, guys, we will ask this one separately. Apart from asking you to give us the difference between the egg and the sperm, separately we can ask you to describe how the egg moves. You are going to tell us that it moves with the help of cilia that line the fallopian tube, and also it moves with the help of peristalsis in the oviduct. Correct? Then when you come to the number produced, sperm cells, normally they're produced in millions, constantly. But the egg cell, the egg will only have one per month. So when one ovary produces the egg this month, the other one will produce next month. Okay? So one per month from puberty until menopause. One per month from puberty until menopause. Terms of structure, from our diagram you can see the sperm has got a flagellum or a tail. The egg doesn't have a flagellum or a tail. Then the chromosome, here again I want us to be very, very clear. I want you to remember, and many students make these mistakes, and I don't want you to make the mistake. A sperm cell, it contains either X or Y chromosomes. X or Y chromosomes. Why do we say X or Y? Remember, we have just said that the gametes are haploid. So which means it only contains one set. So it can only be X or Y. Don't say X and Y. Many students will say X and Y, which is wrong. It is X or Y. Then when it comes to the egg cell, eggs, they only contain the X chromosomes. So those are the differences between a sperm and the egg. So please be in a position to give us the differences between these gametes. Now, after looking at those other sections, we'll be looking at the adaptation. Okay? The adaptation. How are the sperm cells adapted to their functions? Or how is a sperm adapted to its function? So when we're talking about adaptation, the first adaptation of the sperm will be an acrosome. An acrosome. So talk about acrosome, then tell us how useful is it to the functioning of a sperm. How useful is it to the functioning of a sperm? So acrosome produces the enzymes. Remember we said the enzymes? So the acrosome produces enzymes that help in digesting the membrane of the egg to allow the sperm to penetrate. So acrosome produces enzymes that digest the membrane of the egg to allow the head of the sperm to penetrate into the cytoplasm, so that fertilization can take place. The second adaptation is the presence of lots of mitochondria. Lots of mitochondria. If I can take you back to the previous slide, then we come back here. If you look at the previous slide, we have the middle piece there. Okay. Okay. If you look at the middle piece here, the middle piece contains lots of mitochondria. Okay, so those lots of mitochondria from the topic of respiration. Mitochondria are responsible for aerobic respiration that releases energy in the form of ATP. That releases energy in the form of ATP. Because you know, the sperm needs to move. You know, it moves from the vagina all the way to the oviduct. So for it to move, for the lashing of the tail, energy is required. So lots of mitochondria. So talk about mitochondria where aerobic respiration takes place that releases energy in the form of ATP. That energy is needed for the movement by the sperm cell. And finally, the last adaptation on the sperm, we have the flagellum or the tail. So the flagellum or the tail helps the sperm to swim or to move towards the fallopian tube where fertilization takes place. 3 adaptations of the sperm: acrosome, mitochondria in the middle piece, and the tail or flagellum. So if you are told to describe the adaptation, talk about the adaptation, acrosome, and give us how useful it is. Mitochondria, lots of them, how useful are they? And then the flagellum, and how useful is this flagellum. Don't just talk about acrosome, then you don't describe what it is. We might not be able to give you the full marks that you deserve. So describe the adaptation of a sperm cell, give the adaptation, describe. Give the adaptation and then describe, then you'll be good to go. Now, finally, the adaptation of the egg or the ovum. Now, the egg or the ovum has got only 2 features that we'll be looking at our level. The first one, we're saying that it contains lots of cytoplasm. If you go back to the diagram, the cytoplasm is very huge. Let me take you back so that you'll have a look at it. Look at the cytoplasm. Okay. Look at the cytoplasm. It is very huge. It is big enough. It is large to contain lots of nutrients. Okay, to contain or to store enough food, if we may, enough food that is needed for the development of the zygote. Okay, so lots of cytoplasm that stores enough food required for growth and development of the zygote. Okay, so we have contains lots of cytoplasm that stores enough food which is required for the growth and development of the zygote. Then finally we have the jelly-like coat, the membrane. Remember what we said, that this jelly-like membrane, it changes after fertilization by a single sperm so that no more sperm cell can enter the ovum. So these are the 2 adaptations from the egg cell. Contain lots of cytoplasm that stores enough food such as glucose, such as amino acids that's in the form of protein, and even we have the fat droplets that will be required for the growth and development of the zygote. Now, to summarize this thing, even though we'll be looking at them in the coming videos. What I want us to agree on is that once fertilization has taken place, you have the zygote. Many students don't get this clearly. We have the zygote. This is the cell that you get after fertilization. It will divide. It will undergo several cell division by mitosis to give you a ball of cell that you are calling an embryo. Okay? We'll be talking about it later on, but just to give what you'll be looking at, we have the embryo. Okay? Then the embryo will grow, develop, a lot of cell division taking place to give you the fetus. Okay? You have the fetus there. Then the fetus now, of course, will develop into a full organ, in full system, what we are calling now a baby. So please mark that sequence. Zygote divides by mitosis, gives you embryo, then you have the fetus. Then of course the fetus will grow into a baby. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for watching this live stream session that was conducted by the Igcse Online Academy. You can follow us on our Facebook page, that is at Igcse _Igcse, or you can follow us on www.igcseonlineacademy.com. We have a lot of programs there that you can follow and you are really going to enjoy. Until next time, thank you very much and take care. Keep yourselves safe. Hello.